Hi there, thanks for watching. If you haven't already, subscribe. Please subscribe, it helps us out. And click the bell icon to get notifications. We have lots more coming for you. In this lesson, we'll be focusing on the foliage. We want a nice, airy feeling, lots of atmosphere, and we want to knit the sky and the foliage together. It's useful to look at the black and white version of the reference. There's a lot of strong value contrast, but there's also a lot of middle value in the foliage. As usual, we're going to take some time and plan this one out before we get going with Pastel. For this lesson, we're going to focus on painting foliage. And of course, this can be pretty tough for people, depending on the time of year. Of course, in the summertime, in the spring and summer, it's overwhelming amount of green foliage. In the fall, as in this case, overwhelming amount of whatever the color is. In this case, it's red. Also, the sky holes present a particular challenge for people. But I always think about whenever I'm confronted by a challenge in painting, it's also an opportunity. So I think there's a few keys in painting foliage. We want the light to be spilling around the edges and coming towards us through the sky holes. We want, at least I want some atmosphere, and I want a depth in the foliage, not just a flat plane. So there's a few things that we can do to get that quality in the work, that light atmospheric feel. Now, as usual, I'm going to do a thumbnail, and in this case, I'm gonna do a square, even though this this reference material is a rectangle. So I'm gonna squash everything down into the square. Now notice the scale of my thumbnail. This is really a little thumbnail. And that's what I suggest. You don't want to be spending a lot of time on the thumbnail. You want to just have something that you can get down very quickly. So the first thing about painting foliage is that I'm going to plan for this big foliage mass, which is this whole mass right here. Here I'm going to set in my main tree trunks. I'm going to get an idea of what these are. And I'm thinking, I love the gesture of these tree trunks. And then there are, in this case, there's a row of trees going back in the distance here. So I'm gonna get that little row going. Then there's this lovely sweep of the road here, and this is just a suburban scene of in a neighborhood. It's a really familiar place to me, one that I used to go by all the time. So that's kind of cool. So I want that sweep of the road in here. I want this little red bush on the side, because I think that's going to be kind of a neat stopper in my composition and bring me back to my focal point, which is right in here. So I want that in there. And then there's these houses back here in this darker area that sort of help to frame the red trees here. So I'm going to set that in there. And notice with the ballpoint pen, I can get this great, the thing I like about ballpoint pens doing the thumbnails is I can get this real dark And ballpoint pens can do this better than any tool that I've found. So I can get this nice gradation pretty easily down to the white of the paper. So I'm going to set this little dark area in here. It sort of frames, see, it frames my trees, and then it sort of comes back underneath. And I'm gonna get this in here. Does a nice job of framing this red mass. So this is going to be, this whole area is going to be my mass of foliage. I'm going to set a little bit of value in this, in here, just so I can get a sense. There's the lovely fallen leaves down here that, so I'm going to want a kind of a gradation from the bottom. That's going to, again, I'm doing everything to get my viewer to look to my focal point, which is right in here. So if I have a gradation down here, that's going to push me up. And this is a little bit darker than the road. I love this reference, the glistening road. And so I'm going to try to catch that part as well in my final version. Now I'm going to say something in my thumbnail about the value, the overall value of this mass of foliage. It's much darker than the sky. Here's my sky, right? This little area right here is my sky. And we'll talk about how to approach this foliage as we move into the painting. Okay, so that's about all I need in terms of a thumbnail. It's going to get me there, I think. Get this guy sitting in there. Okay, so there we go. Let me get in on the thumbnail for you. There it is. Okay, so I've got it planned out. Once you've got your thumbnail done, you can go ahead and prepare your sanded pastel paper. In this case, I've used leaf green, and the proportion is a square, and it's 11 by 11. All right, we're going to get started with this. What's cool now is I have lots of tools to help me. I've got my thumbnail, I've got my reference material, so I'm all set to go. I'm going to get this thumbnail down here and really take a look at it. So the main thing that I'm looking at is this, the negative space of the sky. That's kind of a nice, easy thing to start with. If I'm just from a drawing perspective, kind of sits in right here. If I want to just get that same sort of shape, this shape, that goes a long way to getting me going on the drawing. Get this whole shape of the foliage mass in here. And then I'm gonna set in this main tree trunk. Something like this. I always find it so much easier to draw the negative shapes than the positive shapes. I'm thinking about what I really liked about this reference is the gesture of these branches in here. So now there's these other trees going back, this nice cool row of trees. And then there's this dark, the dark shape that's in here. And I'm gonna say something about this dark shape, just mass it in just so I can feel it back in here. That's good. And then there's the dark shape back here. That's really good. And then I'm gonna get the sweep of the road, the sidewalk as it comes forward. It does something like this. That's a nice kind of gesture right there. And then I've got the other side, and there's this little red bush here that I like. I want to make sure I get in. And the other side of the sidewalk. And that's it. That's my drawing. Now it's pretty easy peasy just using the negative shape. Maybe I'll go ahead and remind myself that I'm going to want this a little dark down here. And maybe over here. So I'm getting a little kind of a grisaille, a dry underpainting, just a little bit. Saying a couple of things about the values that I'm going to want to establish. First thing. Okay. All right, that's pretty good for the drawing. Okay, I usually don't show what not to do because it's not kind of my way. But I'm going to in this case because I think that it's instructive. So let's just say that I was going to make my sky in this reference material, this photo, it's almost white. So what I would never do, and I don't say never too many times, but let's say this is the sky. And the sky is obviously behind the trees, but I'm not going to do this. Here's the sky. And then I'm going to try to get that red foliage over the top of the sky, right? That's kind of usually how we would think of painting. Here's the sky, it's behind, and then we'd put the foliage over the top. Something to this effect. And then we'd put the branches or the trunks in here like this. I would not do this. And the reason that I would not do this is because what this is akin to is painting wet into wet. We've got the wet paint of the sky, and we're trying to get the wet paint of the foliage over the top of that. And right here we're going to have, basically, it's going to get muddy. We've got product over the top of product. And whenever I can avoid doing that, I want to avoid it. I want to plan my shapes and knit my shapes together. When we're doing foliage, we really want the sensation or the feeling that the light is spilling around the edges of the foliage from the sky. And it's almost impossible to get that look, that light, airy feeling of the light spilling around the edges through the sky holes, because then now we'd be, trying to see if we can, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. Right now I'm trying to get sky holes in, and see look, it's muddy, it's making a mess. And the even if I have to press really, really hard, I'm making a mess of the red and making a mess of the white. And right here, it's messy. Even though I'm pressing super hard, is basically as hard as I can get. And it's not very pretty, and it's not like the light spilling around. So I'm going to show you back over on the other piece, the way I make it work. Okay, so now I showed you the little video on what not to do, and I kind of hate to do that, but there is this a way that I think that we can get the foliage and get that light spilling around the edges of the foliage, the leaves and the branches. And I really want, in my painting, I want that light, airy, atmospheric feel. I don't want that. I don't want product over product. So I'm always planning the foliage mass. It's the same thing with clouds. I plan the cloud mass, and I knit the sky around the clouds. And in the same sense, I'm going to knit the sky into this foliage mass. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to establish an overall hue and value for this foliage mass, and I'm going to get it in there pretty thin to start with, again because I don't want too much. The blocking in stage, I really want to establish the essential values and hues of each shape. I really want to get the whole thing rolling all together. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is pick a color, a hue, and a value for this mass. And I want something pretty bright to start out with. Pretty bright. And I see a lot of pink in it. So I'm going to go ahead, just have fun with it a little bit. And I'm going to, I need to roll this around to get the right spot on the pastel. I'm looking for a little flat spot, and just with a pretty light touch. So I'm going to come over here into the sky, even really light touch over here, because I know I'm going to want to knit a lot of sky in between here. I can press a little harder as I get to the more dense part of the foliage mass. Can get a little bit more pastel down, but out here on these edges, see, I'm going to go ahead and already kind of get something like that. And again, out here where I know that I'm going to want a few more sky holes, I'm going to lighten up my touch. So right in here, it's a little denser, a little thicker. And out here on the edges, it's a little more airy, so I've adjusted the way I've put the pastel down to accommodate that, to plan for that. All right, I'm going to leave that be just as it is for now. And I'm going to go ahead and get these other shapes established. And the next biggest shape feels like the grass, but the grass has a lot of that pink on it too. I'll come down in here in the bottom part of the grass with this bright emerald green. And you see how I'm starting out pretty bright and saturated, with saturated, or another word, intense color, because I know I'm going to settle that down. And I have a tendency to start with something brighter, and then if it's too bright, I can mute it. I can put the complement down, or I can put gray over the top. But it's harder for me to get the brights if I've got mud, if I've got a lot of gray and a lot of muted color. It's harder to get the bright back. So I start out bright and can go back in the other direction if I need to, and I'm going to need to. So I'm going to come back over the top of this, because right in this area I see there's a lot of pink where the leaves are fallen. So I'll get that established. So it's almost like a little gradation. There, and that's kind of nice. All right, so I've got those two shapes. Now I need something for the road. I don't want to go for the road yet because I don't want to go too light. It's this bright, glistening road, but I want to get these other shapes in before I decide on what this is. So I think I'll start with the sidewalk. And I'm thinking for the sidewalk, something kind of purple. It's pretty light in value. That might be too light. And I don't like that I made that mark there. I want to make my mistakes over here. So that's, and again, I'm going to ease up my touch right here where I see that there's going to be more fallen leaves. Because again, I'm trying not to put product over product when I can avoid it. So I can go a little heavier here where there aren't as many leaves, lighten it up where there are more leaves. And I'm going to get this other side of the sidewalk in here as well. There's a little touch of it here. Here. Now I'm going to move on to the next easiest shape for me. I'm going to go ahead and get this tree on the left established. I want it to be pretty light. And I see a lot of blue, especially on the rim of it. And oftentimes on the rim of foliage, there's this, if you squint down, there's this kind of vibration of color. And I'm going to try to catch that a little, get a little bit of green in there. That's all I need for that right now. Now I want the red bush, and I want that to be pretty bright red or pink. Let me start with this. It's a little darker than, see, it's a little bit darker in value than the foliage mass. I'm just going to get it on this top edge here. That's good. Now, do I want to do that? I think I'm going to put the sky in. So I want that sky to be, it's really light. It's very, very light in value. So I'm going to pick almost white. It's got a little yellow in it. It's kind of creamy. And it's going to work. I've got this nice burgundy paper. And you see, I'm going to, just with a really light touch, I'm not filling the tooth of the paper yet. Now I'm going to kind of come around some of these little shapes that I've already got going for the foliage of the tree. And see how that's going to do this nice soft blending already with the pink. It's this white's picking up some of that pink and it's blending with it, and it's doing something already really nice on the edge. Come in, show you what I mean. Right here. It's blending already, and I can just blend it a tiny bit if I need to. I don't want to. I'm not gonna do that yet. I don't need to do that yet. I'll have plenty of opportunity to blend and play with it. Okay. Now I can go ahead and get a couple little spots of sky over in here. That's kind of nice. It kind of helps me with this whole shape. And right in here. All right. Now I'm going to think about this road. I want it to be a little bit darker value than the sky. Even though at the end I might go ahead and get some highlights of that sort of glistening thing that I'm after. But to start out with, so I'm choosing, you see that that's a pretty significantly darker than the sky. And again, I got to find the spot on my pastel that's flat, so that I can make some nice big strong strokes. I want to just come in like a wash, just like a watercolor wash, and fill this shape, fill this whole shape. And I'm going to come back in here. Yeah, so that's good. Now, one last thing I want to do with this blocking in stage is I'm going to go ahead and say something about these tree trunks. And I'm going to use the side of my, this is the Blue Spruce New Pastel. I'm going to use the side of this stick to build this trunk rather than drawing a line like so. And keeping in mind how much I like the gesture of these guys, these branches. And we'll set these other ones in here, kind of using a little broken line. I don't need too much more than that at this point. I'm going to lift up this dark shape a little bit, just redesign that shape just a little bit because I liked how it goes in the reference, and strengthen this so that I really can see the shape of the foliage. You know, I'm drawing the foliage shape with the negative shape of the dark around it. Again, I always find that so much easier. Whenever I can do the negative shape, I feel like it's good for me. Okay. All right, I feel like I'm pretty blocked in here. I'm gonna darken this up just a bit. Maybe even give this a little bit darker. Do I want to say a couple more little things? Yeah, maybe. Light touch, really light touch. There we go. Okay. I feel like I'm blocked in now. I've got everything kind of going at about the same speed, so to speak, right? All right, now that I've got everything blocked in, I can start adding on. I can start adding on different hues, different intensities within each of these masses that I've established. I'm gonna check in on my thumbnail. I'm feeling like it's pretty true to that. It's got quite a few of the things that I was initially attracted to by the reference material. I've got that the gesture of the foliage mass, the gesture of the branches, the sweep of the glistening road, the fallen leaves. So I'm feeling pretty good about it. So now I'm going to keep adding on. The first thing I want to do is get a little bit more color, variety of color, variety of hue within that foliage. So I think I want something a little more on the orange side than I've got. So I'm going to pick up this orange and just kind of sweep some of that in here. At this point, I'm not yet making marks that are, I'm going to say leaves. I'm going to do that in this case. I can do a bit of this number to sort of emulate leaves. But really, what I'm more than leaves, I'm going to be thinking about the light. What's happening with the light hitting these shapes. So I'm going to come with some of this orange down here into my fallen leaves. Maybe bring some of it along the leaves have kind of accumulated against the curb. Get a little bit of that going. There is one thing that I want to make sure that I catch before I get too much further. This closest tree has this kind of very pretty soft cast shadow, and I want to be sure that I get that. But I'm going to use this stick. I'm going to see what else I can do with it. Maybe I'll catch the top of this red. I'm not sure that works, but I can come back to it. All right, I'm going to live with that a little bit. So I'm going to get this cast shadow. I'm going to go back to my blue spruce, new pastel, and I want to say something about this very pretty, soft cast shadow. Sits right in there. And I'm going to bring this dark shape right back here down just a little bit. Just a little bit. Okay. What's next? I think I'm going to add on a little bit to this shape. I want to darken this side of it so I really get this glow on the edge. And I don't want this value here much lighter, so how I get the glow on the edge is to darken the other side. We're building these relationships. Right here, I want a little more of this. There's a nice little blue glow right here, and I want more of that on this edge. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this light blue gray right in here, right up into there. And I see that I can use this a little bit on the sidewalk. Whenever I can pick up a stick and use it for a couple of jobs, that pleases me, because I know what I'm doing there is I'm creating more color harmony in my piece. The fewer sticks that I can use to complete a piece, the more harmony I'm going to have in my piece. And I'm going to bring some of this back in here so it's as though it's a continuation. That pretty much works. All right. Now I want to lighten, brighten up this grass. So I'm going to bring this olive in here. And I'm going to leave that cast shadow. This will help say that cast shadow a bit more. Sneak some of this green back in here. Now I'm adding a variety of hues and intensity to each shape. I'm adding some texture and some gradations, and if I'm wanting to suggest more of a light source, I'm going to do that at this point, and also any detail. Okay, I'm going to continue to add on here. I'm going to add a little bit more color on the grass here where the leaves would be falling, and even in this shadow. And I'm making marks. I'm just kind of skittering this so they're sort of broken across this grass. So it's sort of emulating the leaves, leaf shapes. All right, now I want to go a little further in the sky and start knitting the sky a little bit more strongly around this foliage. So here I'm actually pressing pretty hard for the first time in this piece. And I'm going to use the word designing the shape. And I'm going to come in and soften that as I go. The thing with sky holes, you want to have a variety of sizes. You don't want to have this little dot, 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 dot pattern. So you got to be kind of conscious of that. So I make marks in different directions, some vertical marks, some horizontal marks. And I'm feeling like I want to get a little more color right on the edge, just a little bit more color. So I'm going to come over this a little bit more. And come in. Because I painted pretty thin, I can get this white over the pink really easily. It's not a problem. It's not really product over product, so it's not making it muddy. Had I put the sky in and then tried to get the pink over the top, I would have had mud. I would definitely have had a muddier situation. But now I'm getting this nice airy feel on the edge. Now I'm coming near this edge. I'm going to get a little more of this blue color right on the edge. And then I'm going to knit the sky into that just a little bit, picking out some shapes. And then a little pressing a little harder. Now, if I'm going to at some point want some little small leaf shapes, and that's not going to be any problem, some small ones to get over the white, or that kind of creamy yellowy thing that I've got for the sky. That's not a problem to get some small marks, but to get some of these bigger shapes, wouldn't want to do that. And then again, I want a little more color out here. So I can kind of go back and forth a little bit. Now I'm going to put a little bit of color out here. Getting there. Soften that up just a little bit. Get a nice soft edge. Come out here. A little finesse, just a little finesse here, taking a little time to get this going. So I just come all around here and get these shapes in the way I want them. A little more color up in here. Get this a little solid. Now, one thing I need to do right now is I need to wash my hands, my fingers, because I want to blend that just a tad, and I can't do it with my fingers with the pink on it. So I need to make myself take a little break to clean off my hands. Okay, got my fingers clean and dry. Dry is important too. And now I can do a little bit better job of just going in here, and still made a little bit of a mess. But okay, it's looking pretty good. I want a couple different kinds of shapes. This all feels a little bit the same, a little bit borderline. So I want a couple bigger shapes. And a transition into the more dense area of the foliage mass that I've got going here. Now I'll come over here to this other side where there's a very few sky holes, and I'll get a few of those in. Don't want to overdo, because I want it, I want the shape of it to be maintained. So just get a few things in here. And again, a couple going into the denser area. All right, I'm going to leave that be for now. I'll probably come back to it and do a little bit more work on these sky holes, just softening them up, maybe changing the shapes. But for right now, I'm feeling pretty good about what that's all about. So I don't want to, I'm always wanting to develop the piece as a whole. I don't want to finish any one area. And I always think about it, I want to pay attention to all of the areas of the piece. I want equal attention to every inch of my piece. That doesn't mean equal emphasis. but it means equal attention. So I don't want to leave an area out and feel like I forgot about it. Okay, that's looking pretty good there. So now I'm going to come into this road. I'm at that point where I feel like that road needs some attention. So I'm going to come in with a little bit, it's still sort of a grayed purple, but I'm going to come in with that, and I'm going to get some of this glistening, light glistening feel to the road. So some pretty big strokes. I'll let myself make some pretty bold moves here. And I'm going to let this, the darker purple underneath kind of go on the edge of the road here. Bring that back there. That works out pretty good. And I might, at the end, want something that's even a little bit lighter than that. Maybe highlight, but not yet. So, okay, I see a couple spots in the sidewalk that are wet, and so I'm going to use that same stick to do that. That works out pretty good. Soften that up a little bit, and I've got the same thing over here. So you can see I'm getting more towards the ends, the extremes of my value scale now. I started out kind of in the middle, and now I'm getting more to the extremes, and that's what I like to do when I'm painting. I want to start more in the middle of all my value masses and work towards the extremes. If I start at the extremes, I can kind of get caught, and I don't want that. I don't want to get caught in a position where I don't have, and we only have what we've got in terms of value to work with. And if we sort of use up our shoot our wad, so to speak, then we can get ourselves in a kind of a bad position. All right, that's pretty fun. You can pick away at it a lot. So now I want to get a little bit lighter value going in those fallen leaves here on the ground. So I'm going to pick up something that's kind of peachy and salmony. And that feels about right. And I'm going to drag it across in a couple areas, but I'm also going to start building a little bit of texture. So making some marks that feel like they might be leaves. Making them pretty small in the distance, and they can be larger as they move forward. See that? Okay. I think it feels like I need something more in the middle. So that salmon is a little bit too light for me here. So I'm gonna get something kind of in between. Dragging, I'm just kind of figuring out how to emulate that texture of the fallen leaves. I don't want to overdo. I don't want to be, it's not my style, I'm going to say, to do individual, to get that detail. Starting to do some nice things here. Wind is howling here in Portland today. Okay, now that I've got that, I can start to see where I would want to make some marks that are similar up here in the foliage mass, especially as I'm going across this dark shape. I can kind of make a gesture as though it's windy and the leaves are falling. So I'm going to make some marks up in here now that could be said to be more leaf-like. And even out here. So I start to get some layering. So these that are softer are a little bit further away from the viewer, and the ones that are on top are a little bit closer. And that's good. I'm also trying to make a variety of scale of these marks. Again, the ones that are larger are going to appear to be closer. I want to add some more color, more variety of color in here. And I'm going to reach for something that's kind of almost got a chestnut type feel. I see that in the photograph. Not sure that's it. And I like it. So I want that in the painting. Something like that. Yeah, that's what I have in mind. And I'm going to go ahead and drag some of that. One of the things that I also like about the photograph, up here in the corner, it appears to be a little bit darker in value up here in this right-hand corner overall, and kind of gradate out so that there's a light source coming in this way, so it's darker overall in this corner. And I want that in my painting here. So I'm going to load this right side with a little bit more of this chestnut. And I'm going to come back in the other side with a little bit lighter pink. Right along here. And I'm making a broken line. Same kind of, not line. All right, that's nice. It's starting, really kind of getting a little bit of a quality of light. I like that. So I'm going to bring some of this pink down in here into the fallen leaf area. That feels good. Diminish that cast shadow just a teeny bit. Doesn't need to be that large. Come out here. Just finessing, just playing. Lots to do here in this piece. So as you're working on it, just keep working all around. Even though I'm working, you know, you have to work one area at a time. But don't get stuck. Don't get stuck on the leaves. Keep moving around. It's very easy to get stuck in one spot. Don't want to do that. I'm going to come back over here now. Now that I've got this all working, this can stand to have a little bit more power. So that works out nice. Gives it a little balance there. And I'm going to come in here with this green. That works out. And then there's some little bit of green foliage underneath these branches that sort of help to silhouette the branches. And I definitely want that. So I'm going to come in between these guys. That works out pretty nice too. I'm going to drag a little bit, now that I have this stick in my hand, a little more of this green into the grass. And in between, that's good. And that makes me feel like I want to add a little bit more of the emerald green. I'm just liking the green, lifting up that green. So you see this, I'm using the side of a new pastel, and it's kind of glazing. It's just like a watercolor wash, just over the top. Just sneaking some of this green back into the grass. Now I feel like I have this mark right here on the sidewalk that's pretty strong. I'll settle that down just a tiny bit. See that? It's just a little distracting. I don't want my eye to go right there. I'm always thinking, what is my piece about? What is it about? And I want to make sure that all my marks and everything that I'm doing is in service to that. What is it? Now I can come in with this kind of peachy salmon color and get a little sensation that the light is hitting these. So it's more about the light than it is the leaves, I should say. lining the sidewalk there. I'm going to be a little careful about these shapes here because I want it to flow. All right, now I'm kind of honing in on finishing at this point. In finishing, I'm going to resolve any areas that need some attention or TLC, that need maybe a little cleanup. I'm also going to slow down and make some color and value adjustments where it's needed. And I'm going to go that extra mile to exaggerate some contrast and intensity. Give yourself permission to do this. So I want to think about, what do I need to do to bring this to a more finished feeling? Well, there's quite a few things I want to do. I want to work on the branches and the tree trunks. I want to spend a little bit of time designing this area just a little bit more. I'm feeling like these shapes are all a little bit too consistent, too much the same size and shape. So I want to play with that a little bit. I still want to darken this area just a tad more so that I'm really getting this quality of light coming from this direction. I'm going to want to add some highlight to the road and maybe work on the texture so that the texture of the piece is very, very consistent. Maybe a few more sky holes here. So that's my plan of action to bring this guy to finish. So I'm going to start in with the tree trunks. That's the first thing that I'm going to do. So I just want to say a couple of things a little more strongly. I'm using kind of a broken line rather than do this whole branch. See, there's little gaps here, and that's suggesting that the foliage is intervening between the viewer and those gaps. In a couple spots a little darker down here. And then thinking about this gesture, that so attracted me from the beginning. And then there's secondary branches that come off that I didn't really do too much with yet, or haven't done too much with. So I'll play with those just a little bit. And I've got this other branch that comes through here. I'll make this just a little bit girthier here. I got some other branches. I'm just, I really want to think about the gesture of them. It's such an elegant gesture that they have. Let me make sure I get something like that, and then they sweep up. Use the side of the stick to get that sweeping motion. Back in here, and there's a little bit more to be said about these up in here. It's back here. The interval between these guys. And there's actually a couple more of them that I could suggest. A couple more trees in the row. I think a little bit darker down in here now. And there's a couple branches out here even. I don't want to get too carried away. because overall I like it. Okay. Now I'm going to come in with the one more color into these tree trunks. Because right now I've just got the blue spruce, and for the dark. Easy does it, because I don't want it to pop out too much. And I'm going to come over into this shape as well with this. This is a Terry Ludwig, and it's one of his sort of eggplant colors. It's one of the colors in the Intense Dark 2 sets, which is a color I use a lot. It's not black. It may appear almost black on camera, and also lots of people when I'm doing a live demo, like, is that black? No, it's not black. I rarely use black. I don't want to say never use black, because that's not true, but I don't use black too much. So that's nice, and as I'm feeling that, I'm going to use this just a little bit in this very foreground, and really light touch, you know, drag that into this green down in here. Maybe that's too much, so I'm going to come back with the green, settle that down just a little bit. Okay, now I wanted to darken that corner, and what should I use to darken that corner? I don't want it to be too dark. I'm going to pick up this kind of rusty red, and this is introducing something new and different, but I'm feeling like I need it. And I'll put in a couple spots, sort of gradate it from this corner out. Maybe I'll drag it a little bit into this cast shadow and even down in here. And so in other words, I don't want to, I want to use it in more than one spot in my painting. All right, now I wanted to do a few more things on the sky holes over here. And I want there to be a variety of sizes. I can even come in here a little bit. I want these over here to be particularly soft. Okay. Now over here, I'm going to spend a little bit of time. So what I want, just a little more variety of sizes of these shapes in here too. So some larger ones and some smaller sky holes, little teeny ones. You know, I'm trying to avoid making too much of a pattern. I want it to look natural. Nature. I like that. It's feeling pretty nice and airy. That's what I'm after. I want the foliage to look like the light's spilling around the edges of the foliage. I think I've got that. One other thing that I can do is I'm going to add just a teeny bit of blue, this aqua, right on some of these edges. Because when I squint at the foliage, I really do see like a little, almost like a aura of blue, but it's just a little color coming on the spilling around the edges, a vibration of color. So I'm going to go ahead and right along here, it'll give me a little bit more of that right there. And then I can come back in with the sky and restate some of these. And that's really nice. Okay, now I want to do something on the highlight of the road. So I'm going to use that same color, same stick that I used for the sky. I've got to press pretty hard because I've already got quite a lot of product on the road. So really, I'm really pushing in. It's okay to do that, especially for something like a highlight. Now I'm going to see how it's really sitting up there on the paper. It's a great thing about this pastel paper. You'll really take that, it'll take a beating. I'm going to figure out how I want that. And I'm going to soften some of that. And I want a little bit, there's this wet spot on the sidewalk. And maybe over here. Just a tad. I don't really need that one. Maybe I'll go back to the lavender one right here. That'll work. And now there are some leaves that are sitting up really light and bright on the sidewalk and on the road. So I can go ahead and do that. And they're just catching the light. And there's a couple here. I don't want to overdo that. I could really overdo that, and I don't want to. So I'm just going to pop a couple in. And then I'm going to do the same thing up here in the foliage. Just a few. Again, I could overdo on that, and then I'm going to wind up with too much dot, 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 dot. See, I already feel like I'm getting there with that, and I don't want that. I don't want dot, 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 dot. Okay, now I'm going to just build a little bit of texture in this foreground. And I like to do it like this with the harder pastel. And what I'm doing, I'm actually scratching back into the softer layers. That's what this does. It's kind of fun to build some texture. You gotta be careful not to get too tricky with it and overdo, but it's kind of a fun thing to do. I'm going to get a red stick. This is bright crimson red. And use it right in here. And also down here in the grass, because I know that that's going to work for me. And even back in here, just some scratchy little texture marks. And I can get some in here. All right, now there's one more thing I want to do on the edges of the tree trunks. I want to get a little bit of a light side, so I'm going to use this kind of soft, mousy brown gray. And right on this leading edge of the tree trunk, gotta be really careful here. Just get a couple spots, a couple light spots. And going back to this more distant one. And that kind of works. And then on the closest this is a darker gray. And down here, I'm gonna kind of finesse this little, where the tree trunk meets the grass. And maybe some marks. Now I'm just playing, seeing what can happen. I'm silhouetting this other side of the tree trunk. That works out nicely. Okay. If I want, I can play around with some more little leaf shapes that are in the wind coming down. Got to be careful about the intervals of those. So again, it doesn't start to look too much like a little pattern. But I can come in here and add a few things like that. That's kind of fun. All right. Have fun with it. Don't overdo these. Don't overdo this. This is where to get stuck. Overdoing the dot, 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 dot. Don't do that. Okay, I'm gonna quit. I'm gonna quit while I'm ahead on that. Maybe a couple over in here. And, oh, maybe I wanna hit this just a little bit. Couple spots. So that there's a connection. All right, some fall trees for you. And your independent assignment is to pick another tree scene. This time, I want you to try some green trees, all right? And we'll do another lesson just on green, because that's such a hard thing. And in Oregon, for plein air painting, obviously this time of year isn't super great. It's so rainy. So plein air ends up being very green. Plein air season ends up being a very, very green season. So you need to learn how to deal with green in many parts of the country, and it's a tough one. So we'll do a whole lesson on dealing with green, but I want you to give it a go on your own for the independent assignment. Remember to plan for your foliage mass. Always plan. Don't try to get the foliage mass over the top of your sky. It just is not, you know, from my experience, not the way to go. Maybe you need to try it to see what I'm talking about, but that's just my take on it, and for what it's worth. We'll work on that same principle, doing some clouds as well. All right, I'm picking, right? Okay, but it's fun when you make a couple marks that, you know, sort of bring it home and that feel good. Oh, I see one little thing that I do want to do. This shape, I'm going to bring this one around just a little bit. Yeah, that helps. I just want that to turn the corner there a bit more. Hi, I hope you've been enjoying my free mini lessons and pastel painting demos. One of the biggest concerns I hear from my students, over 8,000 worldwide, is that they need that one push to help them get started and take their work to the next level. It's hard to get started when you don't have a plan and you don't have a mentor to help you dive in. The problem, well, most students have a particular issue, whether it's muddy colors, vibrancy, loosening up, or just motivation, something that's blocking them. That's what I'm here for. I want to introduce my 26-week pastel painting course and tell you how to get help from me personally and to get started. First, when you start my weekly lesson series, just know that you get a personal video critique, me speaking directly to you about a piece that you've created from the lesson of your choice. Any problem or issue you have in your painting, I'll be there to help you out and give you the extra push if you need it. It was really important to me to include a personal video critique as a bonus in the weekly lesson package because I want to ensure there's nothing stopping you or getting in the way of you becoming a successful pastelist. Second, I'm including a bonus that took me years to compile and create. One of the most common complaints I get from students is they aren't quite sure what to paint. I've traveled across the U.S. and taken thousands of photos of places that have really inspired me deeply as an artist, but I can't use them all. So I compiled 200 of my favorites and I'm giving them to you to use in creating your own work. You can create your own original pieces from these as part of the weekly lessons or just use them to get some inspiration. You'll also get a step-by-step ebook I call How to Make Great Paintings from Photos, which teaches you how to turn these photos into your own beautiful pastel paintings. Another bonus you'll get is my personal secret to creating vibrant colors with pastels. The most common question I get about pastels is how to achieve that vibrancy without getting mud or filling the tooth of the paper too quickly. People are always asking me, how do I get those vibrant colors? And the secret to achieving this is included in the bonus video lesson. When you sign up for weekly lessons with me, the 26-week pastel painting course I've created is an online video-based course that gives you 24/7 access anytime you're ready to paint. A new pastel painting lesson is sent to your email each week with a link to the lesson. You'll click that link and log into pastelpaintinglessons.com to your protected members area to get the lesson. The lessons start with the basics and beginning concepts and move quickly into intermediate and advanced. Paint along demos each week, build concepts and techniques that you've learned. You can check out the Getting Started lesson to learn everything that you need to know about the paper, the pastels, and any equipment that I recommend that you use. Each lesson includes a video demo where I teach you how to paint a particular pastel piece. You can take as much time as you want, pausing the lesson and catching up when you need. There are supplemental videos with each lesson to teach specific techniques to deepen your understanding of the concepts I present. PDF instructions, including a materials list, give you everything that you need to complete the lessons. You can print the instructions as well as a reference photo for each lesson. I've also included an independent assignment with each lesson to stretch yourself to do a piece on your own. If you need help with anything, I've got a wonderful support team standing by to answer all of your questions. If they don't know the answer, they'll contact me and I'll send a reply right away. They'll help you with any technical issues, accessing the lessons, any billing issues, and they've watched every single lesson many times, so they know where to find the answers. If you don't complete a lesson, don't worry, you'll never lose access to it. You get lifetime access to all the lessons you paid for. Lessons are billed and delivered weekly, but you can complete them at your own pace and you can pause the lessons at any time. If you're going on vacation or find yourself with less time to complete the lessons than you thought, you can pause the lessons in your account or support will pause them for you. There is no pastel painting lesson program like this in the marketplace that covers pastel painting by a working professional artist who will give you personal video critiques if you run into problems. And I don't know any instructor who has also compiled hundreds of reference photos and included them with the lessons.
I worked really hard to create a one-of-a-kind lesson series that can get you motivated and help you take your painting to the next level. So today I want to give you a special deal on the pricing for the weekly lessons, 37% off. Normally the lessons are $24 each, billed each week when the lessons are delivered. If you sign up today, I'll give you 37% off and reduce that to only $17 per weekly lesson. That includes everything that I mentioned today, a personal critique from me, 200 reference photos, my ebook, How to Make Great Paintings from Photos, and my personal secret to creating vibrant colors with pastels. The discount is available for only a limited time and will be available to you by clicking the Add to Order button below. Click now and join. I'll see you very shortly and welcome you officially to my 26-week pastel painting course.